In today's video, I'm going to answer a couple of questions. This will be pretty informal. This particular video is going to be probably a little different than what I've done in the past. So, you know, if you're used to some of my other material and everything, just scroll past this because it's probably not going to apply to a lot of people. But I am going to answer a couple of questions. It's really two of them. The first that I got from someone is, why aren't you in a suit? You know, I assume they mean like, you know, a suit and tie and stuff. And I'm like, first of all, my hair does this naturally. You know, it takes a lot of work to comb it, so I'd rather just leave it in the Tyler Durden hairstyle and be done with it. And if I put on a suit, then people will start taking me a lot more seriously. And I'd really rather people understand. I'd really rather that people understand the argument or the conversation that I'm having with them, as opposed to giving credence to what I'm saying only because I look a certain way. I would rather my words and my thoughts resonate with anybody who's watching any of my content than the package in which it's presented. Is that fair enough? It's sort of my way of saying, let him who have the ears hear what I'm saying. If you don't have the ears to hear what I'm talking about, then you're probably not going to understand. You know, no one's going to understand it anyway. So, like, what do I really care? That's the first answer. The second answer is, why are you so hard on boomers? And this is in response. And by the way, this is not a criticism here. I'm just going to answer the question. I don't have very many boomers that follow me, but I do have a few. And one of them asked, like, why are you just merciless with boomers? I'm going to do my best to answer this question, and this may actually run into two parts because this is a little bit of a lengthy answer. And so for some of you, this is going to be kind of a boring conversation, but if you're a boomer or if you know a boomer, maybe this way I'm going to answer this will help you understand where I'm coming from, okay? And not just me, and I'm not going to speak for all of Gen X. I'm certainly not going to speak for millennials and Zoomers. I'm just going to give you my interpretation of what I'm seeing in the world. Fair enough? Boomers are unique in that there is a massive disconnect that seems to exist between specifically the boomer generation and everybody else. There's this, and it's the only word I can think of that accurately describes it. It's a disconnection from, I don't want to say reality because that's not a fair statement, but it's a disconnection from what people that are living in the aftermath of all of this, the younger people, are having to deal with on the downside of an economy. And there's a few people out there who say, no, the economy's going great and everything. Yeah, for some people it is. I mean, dude, during the Depression, people bought, you know, Duesenbergs, right? I mean, during the Depression, there were some people who were still rich. That's true, right? But that's true of everything. But when you have a volume of people that we have now, and it's pretty ubiquitous, right? I mean, if you're looking for consensus, you can find consensus in the idea of that inflation is taking its toll on a lot of working people. Okay, they're working a lot, and they're going backward very fast. You can find consensus within that, and I think that you can do that pretty scientifically. Okay, so it's not a conjecture on my end. It's just what I'm seeing. This disconnect is really becoming annoying to a lot of people who are doing a lot of work, and the idea of, well, just work hard. I've been over this. I've got other videos. I've like, okay, what do you mean by work hard? Just work more hours. Okay, how many hours are we talking about here? Is it 65? What's the magic number of hours? When you start dialing these questions in a bit and you start cross-examining, you find out that most people don't have an answer. And this is a problem with a lot of boomers. I get it. Hashtag not all boomers. I realize that there are some rural boomers that were not down for a lot of this stuff that happened. But keep in mind, the majority, okay, are the urbanite people who, you know, who for them it worked. The idea was that, you know, for them, for example, if they had a college degree, if you were a boomer and you got a college degree, say in 1978, and you went to work at a company, you were probably going to have a really good life. Why? Because you were kind of rare in that there wasn't a lot of guys who had it. There were a few, but there wasn't anywhere near what it is now. Now there's been degree inflation. Everybody has a degree in something, and it doesn't make any difference if it's worthless or not. It doesn't. It doesn't make any difference if it's an astrophysics degree. It doesn't make any difference if it's a philosophy degree. It doesn't make any difference if it's a degree in basket weaving. It doesn't matter anymore. They're all becoming complete crap. And everybody out there is starting to see this. In fact, except for some of the younger people that are still kind of bought out. But I just saw the stat. What is it? 54%. I think it was 50. Yeah, I think it was 54%. Are now starting to say that they don't think the college is worth the money. The ROI isn't there, and it's not. It hasn't been for a very long time, actually. This is, again, I'm old school on this. I'm the guy who says that rental property should actually cash flow properly, and you shouldn't have to, do all kinds of rental increases because you need to, keep your lifestyle going. You should be able to actually buy the property at the right price. So again, I'm kind of old school, from a business standpoint. I don't just throw money around at stuff unless there's an actual reason for it. The other part of the disconnect is so again, going back to our boomers, the other part of the disconnect is this. Let me tell you a story. I'm going to tell it to you this way. This is a true story. This actually happened. I'm not going to say any names, but this actually, I know, because anybody who sees this, they'll know who I'm talking about. But there was a boomer who worked at Boeing. I grew up in blue-collar town Seattle. Before Seattle became a tech super hub, Seattle was a blue-collar town for the most part. For the longest time, it was a lot of blue-collar workers and a lot of guys who worked at Boeing. Okay, they didn't have degrees. They had GEDs or they had high school diplomas, and they did a lot of blue-collar stuff. And this boomer worked there for 41 years, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what it was. Like, it was just over 40 years, I think. He didn't have a college degree. When he started working there, it was I want to say the early 80s. Soon after that, he bought a house out in Kirkland, on an acre. So anybody who's familiar with Kirkland, a house on an acre is kind of a big deal right now. Like, if you can find that, that's a big deal. And this was in and among all of the other houses. This was in like a subdivision that had just very large lots. And and I don't remember exactly what they paid for that house, but I think it was like $68,000 or something like that. It was, at the time, it was considered a lot of money, but it was doable. And this is a blue-collar guy. His peak salary when he retired from that job was $140,000 odd a year, something to that effect. If you were to give a Zoomer, let's say, right, so he started when he was like, I want to say 20. 19 or 20, something like that. If you were to find a 19 or 20-year-old today, right now, and give them the exact same job, let's say, that he did the same job, and you gave that kid the peak salary that boomer had, right? So $140,000 a year right through the gate, knowing nothing. If you were to do that, could that same kid afford the same lifestyle in the area? No, not even probably by a tenth, because all of that stuff is so insanely expensive due to inflation, right? Inflation, when I say inflation, I'm talking about, of course, monetary inflation. I'm talking about too many dollars chasing too few goods and services, too many dollars chasing too few profit opportunities. That's what I'm talking about when I say inflation. Could he do that? No. No, it's not possible. And by the way, that same boomer raised a family on one income, and sent his kids to school and all that stuff, right? Okay, so this is all in one income, by the way, and this was a blue-collar income. This wasn't some guy. This wasn't a surgeon, all right? So that said, I'm going to switch over to part two.